say a very big happy 10th birthday to the Bentley Bentayga. That's right, this SUV is now 10 years old. I couldn't believe it myself, but here we are. Now, over this last decade, it's been through a number of changes and revisions. I mean, there's been several powertrains, it's had a big facelift, and now there's even a long wheelbase version. This isn't it though. This is the new Bentley Bentayga Speed, the 10th birthday present to itself. And with this, Bentley has decided to do things a little bit differently. Bentley has always been about luxury and sport in equal measure. But with this Speed, they're leaning a bit more into the sport. Welcome to Big Sky, Montana in the USA. It's full of wide open spaces and even wider roads. Roads that go up mountains, alongside rivers, and sometimes disappear altogether. We're here to try and get the most out of this sportiest of Bentaygas. But before we could go into any of that, a bit of context. First things first, I understand if you're not entirely familiar with Bentley's model naming scheme and hierarchy, so let me try and clear things up. First, there was the W12. Then came the V8. Then the W12 Speed, which was the more powerful version of the W12. And then the V8S. In between, there was a V6 hybrid, but let's not talk about that. But the Speed has always been the pinnacle of the Bentley Bentayga range, the range topper, the most powerful, and as the name would suggest, it gives you maximum Bentley. Now, as you may know, the coupe, the convertible, and the sedan, the Flying Spur, have all moved to a V8 hybrid powertrain, and in their Speed versions, it produces 780 horsepower, which is intense. But Bentley has chosen not to use that PHEV powertrain for the Bentayga. Interesting, isn't it? Well, it turns out that customers don't want it. Yes, customers of the Bentayga at least have told Bentley that they prefer the purest possible experience as they can do with the current emission norms, and that means a twin turbocharged V8 and no hybrid system. How about that? So they've actually managed to wind the good old Volkswagen Group 4-litre V8 up to 650 horsepower and 850 Newton meters of torque. So that is already more powerful than the old W12 Speed, and it's somewhere in the region of the RS Q8 performance and the original Lamborghini Urus. It's not just bigger turbos though, although those are there. There are higher flow fuel injectors, a lower compression ratio, sharper throttle, quicker gear shifts, and those turbos themselves are quicker to spool up. But Bentley hasn't stopped there. They've done more to enhance the purity, the driving involvement, and to make it truly feel like a sports SUV more than a luxury SUV. To that end, they've completely revised the exhaust to be louder and fruitier. And if that's not enough, you can opt for an Akrapovic high-performance exhaust that's fitted to this car, and it sounds really, really good. So, how does that all feel in practice? Well, let me just pop it into sport mode. And immediately you're greeted by that exhaust. There's pops and bangs coming out of the back. There's a fruitier, raspier note. And the best part is, Bentley has not opted for interior audio enhancement. No. What you hear is what you get. And in a car as insulated as this, you can bet it's a whole lot louder on the outside. There are changes to the chassis too, which allows it to be altogether more playful. The ESP is far more lenient, torque vectoring far more aggressive, and there's even launch control for the first time in a Bentayga. To help us better explore these newfound dynamic abilities in a controlled environment, Bentley prepared a rally stage of sorts, one that ran around the perimeter of a huge ranch in the middle of the American countryside. Not that you ever would, but out here on this dusty track that we are on, it's clear that even with its 23-inch wheels and summer tires, the Bentayga Speed is more than capable enough to take it on. More than just that though, should you find a little bit of space, it's happy to stick its tail out a little bit. Shh. Across the crests, slopes and steep drops, the Bentayga Speed shimmied and danced, allowing me loads of slip while still keeping things under control. It was a thrill ride piloting a 2.5-ton SUV like it was a rally car, and really cemented the fact that it had migrated into sports SUV territory. So should you, Bentayga Speed owner, need to reach your farm in the middle of nowhere or your factory on a rainy day, know that you're in good hands. Fun as that was, a quick lunch break and refuel later, we were back on the road. I see what they mean about the responses. It's far more immediate and far more urgent than any V8 powered Bentley before it. And the sound, though it's distant, always goads you on to push a little bit harder. The Bentayga and Bentleys on the whole have always threaded that really fine line between performance and luxury. And it is a fine line because everything that makes one good is at odds with the other side. You want a firm suspension, that's good for sporty handling, not good for luxury. You want a nice sounding engine, again, very good for emotional driving, but not good for refinement. But Bentley has somehow walked that line. With this Speed though, they seem to have leaned further into the sport side of things. They want this to stand out from the crowd. It's a little bit more engaging, a bit more involving, and I think it's all the better for it. And if in case you're wondering, a slightly more potent version of the V8, if that sounds a lot like the Bentley Bentayga S, you're right. And that's why this new Bentley Bentayga Speed replaces both the old Speed and the S. There's no more S, just the Speed. As always, the Bentayga rides on air suspension with dynamic dampers, but for the very first time, it's equipped with 23-inch wheels. 23-inch wheels, in fact, the first Bentley ever to get 23-inch wheels. Now, I'm not sure if that's the wisest choice, especially in the Indian context. The standard 22-inch wheels are probably the better option on the Speed. And you can tell it's the wheels and not the suspension, because if you do slacken it off into Bentley mode or even comfort mode, the movement of the car sort of relaxes a little bit, but you can still hear the thunk. Overall, they say the suspension is about 15% stiffer than the standard V8 powered Bentley, and I can tell that, yes. When you're opting for the Speed, you are obviously opting for a slightly sportier experience, so you've got to prepare for that. All things considered, I would say this falls a little shy of the very best super luxury SUVs when it comes to delivering that ultra floaty magic carpet ride. But it is by a minuscule amount, one I think customers will be willing to accept, given the superb mix of sport and luxury the Speed offers. Speaking of luxury, how does it do at just being a luxury car? Well, I wouldn't opt for the Akrapovic exhaust if that's what you want, because it's ever present even in some of the lesser driving modes. But that aside, it does do all the other luxury stuff. Power is nice and effortless. It's not always super aggressive. If you take it out of sport mode, that's exactly what you get, a nice effortless surge, and that's what you want in a big luxury SUV. And yeah, apart from a bit of wheel slap on these large wheels and tires, ride comfort is pretty good. As for the feeling of luxury, it does a lot to make you feel special. Now, this particular car is appointed in grey on grey on grey, but somehow it just works. It is literally, well, at least 5 different shades of grey in here, if not 50, and a variety of materials. This car even uses stone, open stone. It's actually rough. You could hurt your hand a little bit on it. And loads of cross-stitching, an Alcantara wrapped steering wheel, and in the upholstery as well. Quilting over here. And really, generally, very good appointments. It's just that there are some places, like down here in the center console, where it feels a little bit plasticky, and at this price, I don't think you want that. All things considered though, for a sense of occasion and drama, it's really, really good. Now, the Speed may have gotten far sportier, but in keeping with Bentley's traditional confluence of sport and luxury, let's see what it's like if you leave the helm and head into the back. Now, I know this is the Speed version and it's all about what it's like from the driver's seat, but hey, it's still a Bentley at the end of the day, so I'd be remiss not to tell you what the back seat is like, right? And well, having recently experienced most of the range, this is actually the best back seat in a Bentley you can get. It's really taken over from the old Mulsanne as the car to be chauffeur driven in. Now, this car has the optional split cabin rear seat, and to that end there's these lovely powered chairs with heating, cooling, massage and the like. You get powered sunblinds if you don't want too much of the sun coming in, and of course there's a big glass panoramic sunroof. Space in here is really truly vast, and these seats are nice and big and comfortable with these soft head restraints as standard. They are part of the head restraint, in fact. It's all very luxurious. There's a little touchscreen down there that lets you set temperature and all the other settings. And in this big center console, you'll find quite a bit of storage down there. Some more under these twin armrests. And well, I'm sure you can specify a whole lot more from the options list if you wanted to. And this, let me just tell you, is the standard wheelbase Bentayga. If you really want to be pampered in the back seat, there's always the EWP, but that doesn't come in Speed, guys. On that note, just how do you identify this as the Bentayga Speed out on the road? Honestly, it's not easy, as the changes are few and hard to spot. There's a bit more skirtage around the base of the car, including a chin spoiler up front, a fore diffuser at the rear, and a more aggressive roof-mounted spoiler. You'll notice the dual oval pipes of the Akrapovic exhaust, and the tail lamp glass is grey by default rather than red. A bigger tell, however, will probably be the big 23-inch wheels, if they are optioned, because they truly transform the stance of this car and make it look altogether more menacing. That aside, it's the same imposing yet aristocratic look you get with all Bentaygas, and can be personalized quite heavily to suit your tastes. Tell us in the comments what color you'd like to specify your Bentayga in. With the new Bentayga, it seems like it's been a moment of realization for Bentley. You see, this car was one of the pioneering SUVs of its kind, the really super luxury performance SUVs. But that was 10 years ago, and now the market is a whole lot more different. There's loads of them from all sorts of brands. So what the Bentayga Speed does is cement itself and choose a firm path, and that is one of more emotion. It's more involving, it's more evocative, it's got that wonderful sound from that wonderful exhaust. It seems that this car has a lot more direction now, and really, if you want that little extra special feeling from your Bentley, from your Bentayga, this is the one to go for.